Do you remember when that song first was put out? Some of you weren't even born. But think about that. Should I stay or should I go? What is that a sign of? Asking that question over and over in all aspects of our life. What is it a sign of? It's a sign that there's not a commitment. That there's a sign that there's not an agreement. And so today we're looking at this idea, what does it mean to be spiritually committed in our life? What does it mean to have a spiritual commitment? And then if you take that and you look at it, well, a spiritual commitment, how does that translate? Well, wouldn't that translate into personal transformation? And all that we're ever seeking in this world is to transform ourselves into something bigger, into something greater, into something that is calling from within us. We don't know what it is. We can't give it a name. To give it a name is to limit it, but we know there's something being pulled out of us that wants to do things, and when we're not committed to something, we're moving this way, we're moving that way, we're going in 1,000 different directions. We are multitasking. And we're getting absolutely nowhere. So what I've understood, as I understand the word commitment, it means to agree to. It means to pledge towards something. It means to give your word to something. But I think there's something bigger than that. I think there's a feeling that has to be with that commitment. How many people have ever committed to losing weight? Anybody? Anybody ever committed to finding a perfect partner? Anyone ever committed to quitting cigarettes? And most of the time, what happens with New Year's resolutions? Never happen. They never fall into fruition. Almost never. Very few the time, because it's a mental exercise. That's all it is a mental thought process. And you see, if it's just mental, what's going to anchor that? Nothing, because thoughts are going all the time. Thoughts are like attached to air balloons, and they're always being lifted up and up and up. But what is holding that thought in place? What is the anchor to that thought? It is a feeling deep-rooted within ourselves that says, oh my gosh, this is going to bring out the very best that I've ever thought of myself, the best that I will ever be. And it becomes so ingrained that that commitment cannot be broken. So I'm going to suggest to you that there are 3 commitments. And I'm taking these from Deepak. He used them in a different way, but I thought that they were very relevant for this conversation that we're having today. And he talked about what are the 3 commitments, what are the 3 agreements that we must make with ourselves in order for us to become this transformed. Let me rephrase that, because we never become transformed. Do you understand that? We're always in the process of transforming. It is something that never happens. We never get there. So it's an eternal transforming process that's evolving in us. That's why we're always seeking something more, something more. There's something within us causing our creativity to want to be more. So Deepak says there must be a commitment. That first commitment must be a commitment to seek that which was in us that is greater than we are, and to connect with it. In other words, it is that feeling of being at one. I don't know what that is for you. I don't know what that is for my wife. I don't know what that is for my sons. I don't know what it was for my mother when she was alive. I don't know what it's for my father. I know what it feels like for me, but I can't describe it. But I know it when I've had it. And I know that when I have it, it's because I've been able to silence my mind and go within and feel something. Or it's, on Facebook today, I posted a share, and the share was about these elephants. An elephant that was on this animal reserve for years, and had been separated from this little elephant that had met in a circus. And in this circus, this little elephant hadn't seen this elephant in 20 years. And when they brought this elephant back to this preserve, the reaction of the 2 elephants together, recognizing their connection, their oneness, will cause your heart to open. You see, it's not just humans that understand oneness. Everything is a part of that oneness. Our relationship with every animal, with every plant, it's all a part of the same thing. You cannot say this is separate from me. The second we say something is separate from us, we are denying our own connection to Source. We are denying that feeling that we so want to have. So we must make this commitment to ourselves, this very first commitment, that I will be a finder of this oneness. I will set my life in this direction. I will do whatever it takes to commit to my being in a state of oneness as much as possible. The second agreement or commitment that we have to make is that we have to discover what is it that we're here to do. What is it here that causes us to want to give? What is it that we value? What is it that is yearning to be expressed? What are our talents that nobody else in the universe has? Because everyone in this room has unique talents, and there's no one else ever that has those talents. And so you've got gifts. And what do you do with gifts? You've got to give them. But before you give them, we've got to take the time to explore within ourselves, to identify what those gifts are. Because so many times, I'll use myself as an example. I went to school and I got academically tested, and I was a rather rambunctious young boy. I would probably be labeled ADD today. Maybe even more, because I would bounce from subject to subject. My mind was always into the next thing, next thing, next thing, next thing. Well, they identified that I have a math talent. And I am very, very good with numbers. And I bought into that. And so I kept developing that talent. That talent got me a scholarship to college. Just a scholarship, just because I did well on the SAT. Then, because I did that, I started pursuing a career, and I was involved in what? The financial planning of multi-billion-dollar organizations. So I was using my left brain, left and right. I was number man, and I was never happy. I was exquisite. When I was happy was when I was creating with my cognitive skills, when I was speaking, when I was interacting with people, when I was using my imagination. And finally, in the ripe ages, sometime in my 50s, I took a test and I found out that naturally I am 71% right-brained. Think about that. 71% right brain, and yet I'd focus almost all of my life till then on 21 or 29% of what my talent was. So you wonder why, I sort of said, so why would I come home fatigued? Why would I come home tired? Because I wasn't doing what was natural. You see, I had ignored what my gift was. And so then what happened was I started going back to school. I went back to school to get my master's degree in consciousness studies. And when I was getting my master's degree, for the first time since there was one class in high school that I studied, and that was speech. I took speech very seriously. I loved it. Can you tell? I love to talk. There's nothing in the world I love to do more than talk, whether it's to a group, one-on-one, however it is, I love to talk. Well, in speech, I excelled. Well, when I got to this master's program, where I would do the minimum before in college and high school, I did the minimum. But I'm bright, so I got 3.0s, and I was able to get through. You know why I got 3.0s? Because if I didn't, my parents would not have been pleased. Ever done anything to please your parents? Stephen, don't say a word in back. My son has many stories about that. What I found was I was dedicating 8 to 10 hours a day doing studies. And that was not only studying, but on top of that, I did spiritual practice. So all of a sudden, I shifted, and my whole life went to something that I enjoyed. And then, from that, I found my talent, and I discovered it was to be a minister. And now, when I sit down and I do whatever it is we do in this beautiful community we call Agape, I'm never tired, I never regret it, I just do it. Because it's from my place of joy. So I took the time to find out what did I value, what gave me joy, and then from that, I lived from that. But here's the third agreement. So we know about our dedication, our commitment to oneness, finding that within ourselves, then finding out who are we, what are our skills, what are our talents, what are our values that we desire to express. The third agreement that we must make is, how can I be of service to my fellow man, to my fellow woman? How can I take these gifts and give them to others so that they can receive the benefits of these gifts? And you see, it's not the idea that you give these gifts for the purpose of money. Are you hearing that? Because if you are giving your gifts freely, if you're giving them easily, if you're giving them effortlessly, the money will come because the universe cannot stand a void. And when you are giving something of value, value must come back to you. It is fascinating. Today, the guys were warming up in the band. And the captain of the people setting up today said, would you like some coffee to set up? Well, the guys weren't here yet. Charles wasn't here yet. Well, he came in just as they got here, and band guys, work late. They come in and they're not the brightest and cheerful people. And he walked in with his plate, and he handed them each a cup of Starbucks. Not only did he hand them a cup of Starbucks, he took the creamer and poured the creamer in. Do you see, he was giving of service. He was being of service. He was giving of his gifts. His gift is to be a captain here and know how to please and serve everyone who comes in here. And he was doing it, and he did it with a smile. There was no regret. Now, would I recommend this place to someone else? Of course. But you see, people will refer people here. How many people came here as a result of a referral? Raise your hands. Almost everybody came because they heard about something. So in order for someone to ask you to come, they must have been served. There must have been something given. And here's the thing I want to share with you. When we give, and we give freely, people will know that. They will feel safe. And there's nothing more important that people are seeking now is a place to be or people to be with and to feel safe. Because when you're exploring your personal transformation, when you're about to set commitments for yourself that are going to take you in that direction, you want a safe place to be. Because you're going to be vulnerable. And yes, the world out there may not be the type of world that will support that. But when you come to a community like this is where you can feel safe, where you can feel non-judged. I did something I normally don't do, and that is I go to comedies, okay? When I go to movies, I watch comedies. Well, this week, my son really wanted to go see the movie The Wolf on Wall Street. And I went to see The Wolf on Wall Street. And I thought I was a rather sophisticated and worldly young man prior to coming into ministry. And I found out just how much I'd never been exposed to. And I found out that, wait a second, how much of the consciousness of the world, of this planet, of this country, is vibrating in that? Because do you understand that the people that were in this movie had to attract people who had a victim mentality to take their money from them? And when I say a victim mentality, I mean a mentality that did not believe in themselves enough to take control of their own investments and to trust in themselves and to find that person that was in alignment. Because you cannot have a victim, because there's always going to be a vibrational match. And you see, that's why it's so important to know who you are, because when you know who you are, you will radiate an energy. And when you radiate that energy, you can't do business with anyone who's not in your vibration. Does that make sense? Because if you are vibrating love and peace and integrity, and you exude that in everything, you cannot attract that other into your being. They will be repelled. Isn't that fascinating? One of the things I share with people more and more is you uncover your values, as you uncover your gifts, as you start being of service in the world, there will be people who don't know you anymore that have been your friends all of your life. And they will easily and effortlessly fall away, or they will shift and become more of a vibration alignment with you are. It just happens. We were watching some videos by a gentleman by the name of Simon Sinek. Highly recommend you watch Simon. He's an incredible speaker in the world today. And Simon was talking about the idea of the alpha male. And he was talking about the alpha male, and he talked about it from the standpoint that the alpha male is something that has been so inbred in people for thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years. Okay? And so he actually went into the discussion about it, and he said this. He said, today we have an equal-based society. And he says, that's what we think, but there's DNA in us that is naturally responding in a different way. And when an alpha male comes into a specific group, there will be an alpha female that comes in. And then if the rest of the women are not alpha females, they will line behind it. This is why women that are together a long period of time, they sink in their cycles. That's a biological thing through history, because only the alpha male and the alpha female can mate, because they want to preserve the species so the other women are no longer a threat when they're lined up in the same cycle. Making sense? This is all anthropology. This has scientifically been talked about and proven. Well, it was fascinating. Yesterday, we drove down to be a part of my son Matthew's life in Houston for a big event in his life. And when we were there, I was watching the alpha male aspect. And I watched because all these people had been told about Matt's dad. And Matt likes to make a lot of jokes about his dad. And his dad he's got more stories than he can ever tell you about the things I've done, the ridiculous man I am, and how I constantly was an embarrassment to him as he grew up. But it was interesting, as they approached and they read energy, and they asked interesting questions. So what is it you do? I said, I can't talk about that. Matt told me not to talk about it. No, you can talk about that. You see, they recognize, when you are sure about your oneness, when you are sure about who you are, when you are sure about what values and who you are being of service to, people will just come. They can't help it. It's a vibration that you attract. So what is it? Now that we've got this idea, we've got the 3 commitments, right? Oneness. Who are you? Being of service to others. Now the idea is to take an attitude of that out into the universe. That's an attitude where you walk about and say, I know that I'm one with the universe, and I know that I'm one with you. I know that I have a daily spiritual practice, and I commit to praying and meditating on a daily basis. I am all about forgiving in every moment. I am constantly giving and receiving freely, effortlessly, and easily. I carry myself with an attitude that I am in a state of inner peace with myself, an inner peace with the way my life is going. I'm in a state where there is a homeostasis within my body, and I radiate that I live in a state of perfect health. I live from a place of being in unconditional love, where that my relationships are in non-judgment and non-attachment. Are you hearing those words? Because to be in love, you have to love with non-attachment and non-judgment. See, so you're walking, you are strutting. You are doing well, you're not strutting. But there's an energy. It's like an energy. And the deeper you embody the oneness, the deeper you embody who you are, the deeper you embody your acts of service, this energy field that you are will expand. And you can fill rooms with this energy. And people will feel it. And the second you walk in the room, you will light that room. You've heard that before. He walked in, or she walked into the room, and the room lit up. What happened? They walked in their unique, authentic magnificence. Did you hear those 3 words? Unique. No one else like it. Authentic. Being that one person. Magnificence. Realizing there is nothing I have to change to live up to anyone's expectations, because I am being me. So this idea of spiritual commitment is a commitment to being the highest me ever. It is a commitment to my personal transformation to do that. What could be better than to look in the mirror and say, I love you? And then someone else comes into the room, and they're looking in the mirror, and you can look at, I love you just as much as I love me. And someone else comes in, and you do the same thing there, and everyone looks different. They're all sizes, all shapes, all hair colors, hair, no hair, teeth, no teeth, whatever. And there's just I love yous going on. What does I love you mean? It means I accept and know that you are one with me as all that exists. It's not about you make me feel good. It's not about that we can cuddle afterwards. It has nothing to do with these things. It's not about that we hold hands and electricity shoots through our hands. It has nothing to do with it. That's a nonsense view of love. That is romance. And romance is magnificent, but is it love? See, when we're in relationship with whoever we're in relationship with, our parents, with our children, with our spouse, with our friends, it's the acceptance first of ourselves, because before we can accept anyone else, we've got to accept ourselves. The degree of love that we have will only reflect the degree of love that we have for ourselves. Love is what makes the world go round. Love is everything. The Beatles sung this over and over and over and over again. All of their songs, after they found India and did all of their meditating and that, all of their songs kept going back to love over and over because they realized it. John Lennon, when he wrote Imagine, think about it. He talked about no separation. He understood that everything was about what? The first agreement, going to oneness. And John Lennon understood his skills. He knew who he was. He was a master singer, songwriter. He was a poet. And what did he do? He was of service and he gave to it. And he will live eternally because of who he was, his connection to God, and how he gave to others. He's still giving. He gave just right now when I brought his name up. Everyone here felt and knew what I was talking about. Isn't that the legacy we seek to be in the world? People just to hear our name and to feel good. So I've committed this year to personal transformation. I've committed this year to helping each and every person see for themselves a new way of being. I've committed this year to teach new tools to help people understand this and embody it. I'm inviting you to accept my gift. I'm inviting you to accept Jean's gift. My wife is a teacher as well. I'm inviting you to commit to yourselves to find whatever teacher you need to transform your life. The question I want to ask you is, are you ready for it? The question I want to ask you is, do you accept it? The last question I want to ask is, are you committed to your personal transformation? I want to thank you for joining us today. I am so grateful that you took your time to watch or listen to this message. If you found this message beneficial, I would ask you to go to our website. Once there, click on the Contribute button and experience the joy of conscious and purposeful giving. It is through your gifts that we are able to bring this message to the world. I would also ask you to please share this message with anyone you feel might benefit. Again, I want to thank you for joining me and the Agape community as together we bring joy to life.